Void and truth seeking. Hello, how y'all doing? I hope it's fine. Have you wondered about truth, why and how we exist? I have, at least when I was kid. Now when I am adult, this don't seem important, as long as it does not get into my daily way. It is not bad, because I can handle few half-truths, but not too much. But before that, I should remind you to avoid some uncertainties of you, be it glam or just mad. So do I recall that this story of mine is only my perception and not in any way professional advice or something be bothered about, as actual specialists should say. You can skim it through, but you already knew if you had watched some of other videos of mine. Please stay safe and be okay, not because of our pleas, but because of our glees. Usually people seek truth about world and universe, but for me it feels somewhat not important. One of reasons, probably because I can't really do my daily chores and living stuff if I am always seeking some truth about things which are difficult enough to prove as right or wrong. For example, no one can really prove existence of God, and neither prove its non-existence. God is known only for those who do believe it, and it still can be comprehended in various ways, which can cause separation between believers for same otherworldly entity itself. And there already have been wars between believers and non-believers already. So, we do believe things differently, and that is fine if it does the work and helps to live longer and with calmer nerves. There are many versions of belief for this reality that for me at least works fine, if stuff just works, and my belief does not stay in my way for daily routine tasks as a living being. We seek truth, but does it always is necessary that truth is real or real? I suppose it helps to know what is right in world and what is wrong. But does it really help if it creates more questions and confusion? Is it really important what is truth or what is not, if it makes confusion that I can't do my regular tax paying, going shopping or doing other mundane things? Sometimes even half-truths are okay if they don't make person mad enough and tired of things which are happening around them. For example, there is question how people were created, where was paradise, and what shape earth cosmically have, and where souls go after death, or even do we even have a soul, etc., etc. Very popular answers are that we were created by God and its own image. Paradise was lost for humans when they betrayed its trust about eating some sin-inducing apple, and now we suffer on this forsaken earth and have some promised forgiveness about our sins, which we kind of fluked by nailing His Son to cross itself. For that time, very popular punishment for Hebrews from Romans. This story about human creating does not really let feel safe about own identification as human, which could be explained about doomed faith in God forgiveness, about just forgiving and not knowing what punishment after forgiveness awaits. Yes, God forgives and punishment is taken away, but tell this to own brain itself. If really you can trust omnipotent being to just forgive about his own son being to nailed to cross, which is considered as symbol about spirit being connected to earth, so that God's kingdom can be connected with earth itself. So, yeah, I want to believe, but this really starts to sound like some parenting we forgive, where later is some punishment for behavioral correction. Thinking about own achievements meant sort of nothing when we were granted to perish, not even knowing we could be in paradise, or we could be tormented in hell. For all would religion even give proper answer for chance? Of course, they would never give meaningful answer about anything, because they follow old archive-like books, which are constantly translated by different meanings, because ancient language is not properly translatable to modern civilization language, not knowing about ancient people mundane living. So, in short, Christianity gives answers relying on old book writings which can't be properly translated without making modern people to know ancient civilization happenings. Yes, old books have their truths too, and even they had difficulties to explain stuff, so that followers are not mindless zealots, because books were always meant as guidelines for more proper human living, as a good person by their terminology and meaning. So, humans rely on books, which meaning could be easily changed by necessity for modern humans, because we can't properly translate without confusion. In other words, each sermon would be like a lecture about ancient civilization, which basically has no meaning with ours, and there is no proper truth, how persons should live. So, in my curiosity, I really liked the idea that so-called lost paradise is this earth where we are living now. Paradise can be on earth if we decide to even vaguely follow some rules from Bible and just regular rules between people, and we can live on earth as hell if we decide to ignore advice from Bible and even ignore our country rules, law itself. I don't really know where I am getting with this, but certainly it is pointless to seek truth if in vague form it is already there. That don't be mean person, be it biblically speaking or just by regular laws, so that we don't really need to wait for promised land in paradise. But we have already enough free will to create paradise or hell, depending on preference, on earth. This idea somehow gives me some valuable reasoning that we are already responsible about own lives and livinghood. It does feel a little eerie that here on earth was some predecessor civilization which created us from pods, and we sort of get loose, and some religion ideas were used to keep us in check. Hopefully not in harmful way, but even they would be fed up with stubborn humans. So rules, law, and don't do. Wrongs by Bible or something greater will be angry. Like in parenting, easier was always to somehow scare person, to be at least in sensible way cooperative. Just this time, it is about truth-seeking in religion. We ask question as a kid until we do know that it was all just manipulative parenting. So in religion, it is one of issues that people don't like questions about anything from Bible, because the more you ask, more illusions fall apart. And probably this is one of reasons why there are too many religions and laws themselves. It is not for those who are fine by themselves. They are for those who always like to mess things up, mostly being spiteful about anything. Yes, rules are boring, but mostly they are about don't hurt other person and its belongings. And still people find it difficult to follow this idea, even if they have good life happenings, and they are not forced from sidelines to even do those things. Kudos, people are just sometimes random and just make excuses when hurting others. But we don't dwell into this. So, returning to main theme about seeking truth and sort of recognizing that Bible could be considered as guidelines of good behavior, living in this forsaken paradise, which just happens to be our earth. There are nice other theories about different approach, for example, that we were created by evolution. Sorry, not created, but developed on our own. There was no God and we just were developing from some soup which was smitten by some spark from lighting. We just like that evolved from one cell and from some fish, and somehow it made sense for fish want to live on dirt than being in water. There is nice combination too, that God created Big Bang, and then we developed from one cell to fish, and from fish to humans. Well, these theories don't really get in a way for me. Live my daily day as usual. But there were some setbacks that we silently start to think really. From fish? Just like that, fish decided to breathe air rather than swim in water. And similar thoughts make me dwell into own existential crisis that I developed just from ancestral fish and even ancestral ape. Somehow, this theory gives feeling of no reason to exist, which made me multiple times to think about own insignificance on this earth. Funny, isn't it? Too difficult to live, because God might forgive in hurtful way, and too insignificant to exist, because of some idea about developed fish to developed apes. I mean, I like the idea that both theories do explain human existence in a way that I could make sense and would silence the wandering thoughts about ourselves and this reality. But having more theories on plate just made me think that something is too much. A little too much to think. Yes, that is the right one and just minding own business. I would like to continue in different video, but before I go, I can say that evolution and God mixed theory about significance of humanity seem too lacking when we need logical sort of explained environmental natural activities. For example, logic can help understand surrounding happenings, like cause and reason. By God theory of Bible, God just punishes and that's mostly it. By evolution, there is chaos and really good luck for survival. What in both of them misses for better attunement of perception about surroundings? It is logical pattern recognition, like in some virtual reality and logical programming inputs, not human but some external. And we people on Earth are just logical programs, like in virtual reality, just more celestial-like or even alien-like programming service on some so to speak server. Probably, there are same or similar theories. I would just mention my own perceptive opinion. There could be big similarity with movie Matrix, that everything is just programming. Yes, silly to say that our perception could be really good programming from sidelines, and we all are virtual or just artificial, and programmed to act how we act, like virtual robots or physical robots with virtual thinking about surrounding dimension of Earth. It does not even matter how we are programmed, real squishy robots with artificial thinking or everything is virtual, and we are just programs. As long as we do exist, do daily routines, pay taxes, etc. Important for this theory about being something related to programming is some easiness of not dealing with omnipotent entity, which we call God, and we don't need to feel randomly doomed because of some evolution's wackiness. Please don't mention being afraid of turned off or just erased or sent. Each theory in its own pattern, there are always something to dislike, depending of mood or feeling or just depression. Usually depression is that one thing which causes some kind of being afraid of ending or just hating to exist. However, world itself, in whatever form, would be able to explain things. So, I prefer to mix things up, and our reality is less boring or less threatening, however person would like to perceive these things, if it is possible, because each idea has own likes and dislikes. There is even quite fantasy-like idea too, like some aliens came to Earth. They wanted to mine some stuff, and thus they created humans as workers mixing local DNS together to have loyal workforce, and aliens are gone, and humans are managing themselves by many belief systems, which are quite enough for majority just to feel okay, how world is perceived and understood. This kind of gives sort of post-dystopian feeling that we are alone and our lords in question are gone. So only some remains remain, which kind of points there that some alien-like civilization had been for a while on Earth. It is quite funny to point out that if alien version or one of versions feels too depressive inducing, somehow idea about universal light, person and everything is denser particles of light, and that we all are just light, literally and figuratively, calms down bad feeling about own self. Why so? Probably being a many particle of light condensed version. There are no lords to kneel. There are no survivals. There are no gods to appease. It is just particle of lights in, and even form void itself. You look into the void, and void calmly looks back. Not as fear-inducing entity of non-existence, or some manipulation, but very nice and beautiful being with particles of light, like some source for our light. We all, including aliens and all those mystical creatures, are light, just condensed particles of light. With no reason to be, with no reason to exist, but in more beautiful way. We are just being in sort of light harmony, as light condensed beings. World turns more beautiful, because we are just dancing particles of light. Even if we become at some point higher evolutionary beings, astrally and even physically. I even from time to time in my childhood, I have tried to imagine my own non-existence, how it could be that I would not exist. It was difficult to imagine that kind of imagination, because brain can't imagine itself non-existent. But still, it made me think a lot about existence and ideas, about existing somewhere and existing nowhere. So for some while, I liked idea about God creating life by Big Bang. It was logical and closer to Earth. How to say, but alien version is more adult-like version what and why someone created us in first place. And that void thing is just beautiful perception on idea that each object in life is alive and being reasonable without reason. Like just butterfly in meadow. They don't have any reason to begin with, but their existence itself makes world more bountiful and harmonizing. I maybe stop here for now and will continue next time. Thanks about watching, guys.